Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped and welcome to this week's Midweek 180. Now, if you've not seen one of these before, this is my midweek update where I bring you my news, views and information about upcoming reviews, all filmed in one take. I've got quite a lot of things to chat about this week, but before we do that, let's get the housekeeping out the way. Leader of the pack last week was Michael Kember, well done mate, joined in the Magnificent Seven by Rod Matheson, Malcolm Brew, Kevin DG7, Paul Mead, Gary Matthews and Watch Commander 2012. So whoever puts the first comment this week, you'll be my leader of the pack next week, and the first 7 comments will be in my Magnificent Seven. So, plenty to chat about. The one thing I wanted to talk about first this week is the news from Porsche. Now, I don't think this is going to come as any great surprise because they've certainly been talking about issues around EVs and their long-term future, but they've announced within the last week that they're going to invest around 800 million euros, I think it's about $830 million, into combustion engine and plug-in hybrid models. And that's a really interesting shift for them. They've had a synthetic fuels program for a while now, so they've always got their kind of eyes open and their kind of options and so on open. But clearly they've had EV cars in Taycan and now the new Macan for a while. But if you look at the numbers, at the financial performance of Porsche, their shares dropped by about 6% last week when they announced that their profit margins for last year were only going to be between 10 to 12%, and normally Porsche are around about 20%. Deliveries on the whole across Porsche dropped by about 3%, so they're selling less cars. But the really interesting one, China, which is a very important market, not just for Porsche, but for a lot of the Western car manufacturers. China's sales dropped for Porsche by 28%. And much of that is down to basically Taycan not being as successful as they would hope it is. And the Chinese market, I guess, they're so obsessed with big SUVs and stuff. And at the moment anyway, Porsche don't have an EV SUV, but more on that in a moment. It's also been widely reported that although the 718 Boxster and Cayman electric are due to be launched this year, and we've seen mules being tested at the Nürburgring and on the road, everyone's understanding is that that program is struggling. They've had problems with batteries and battery supply, and they're currently struggling to hit those targets, apparently. Whether or not this investment means that we will end up with a petrol-powered Boxster and Cayman to go alongside the battery electric one, I'm not sure. Porsche haven't confirmed either way. It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. But the all-electric Cayenne is also delayed, and I think that's not going to help with the Chinese market either. So really, really interesting. Porsche announced last year that they were going to carry on making the V8, which you'd find in Cayenne and Panamera, beyond 2030. So I think for me, it's great news. Don't get me wrong. I think electric product. I think if you drive, especially the latest Taycan or the Macan, they're fantastic cars. But it is for me good news to see that they're keeping their options open, and we're going to be getting combustion and hybridized Porsches for a little bit longer than we thought we would. While we're talking about that, I have. Last year I got quite a lot of comment and feedback about the amount of EVs I'm doing on the channel, and I've said already I'm not going to do any more EVs. That clearly is just not going to happen. I like doing new cars to market. I like seeing where the market is, and many of those new cars to market are battery electric cars or hybridized. But I do also want to do some other stuff, and by complete coincidence, by just the alignment of the stars, I'm having a bit of a V12 fest at the moment. Last week I drove the Vantage V12, twin turbo V12, beautiful spec car by my mate who runs 50's supercars, and that video hopefully will be coming to the channel this Friday. This week, I was out in Portugal with Ferrari for the first international media drives of the 12 Cilindri Spider, the Ferrari 12-cylinder. which I've already got as my screensaver. I can't tell you what that car was like to drive because there's an embargo. That video will be coming to the channel later this month. I think it's the 25th, of this month, but tune in next week and you'll know all about that. And then when I came back from Ferrari yesterday, I landed at Heathrow, drove straight to Ferrari in Slough and picked up the V12 Pura Sangue, which is currently parked downstairs in the garage. So I am celebrating V12s at the moment. And I will say right now that all of those cars are beyond the means of the vast majority of us, I am sure. The Pura Sangue downstairs, for example, costs more than twice as much as this whole building. So it's a very, very special bit of kit. But one of the things I want to try and do is, it really resonated with me this week when I was away with Ferrari driving the 12-cylinder, is I'm getting access to drive cars that I would, in my wildest dreams, never have thought I would be able to drive. And to be able to share that experience with you, I think is a cool thing to do, and hopefully you enjoy that. Another video, I've literally just finished editing it this morning. Now, you may well remember back in August last year, I went to Myra with Michelin and we did a tyre video talking about when you replace tyres, whether you should put them on the front axle or the rear axle. And the conclusion of that video was that you should always put new tyres. We should really be changing tyres in pairs, and you should always put the new tyres on the rear axle of the car, irrespective of whether it's a front-wheel drive car or a rear-wheel drive car. And there were lots and lots of comments in that video, as you can imagine, basically disagreeing with that premise. And a lot of the justification for the disagreement was, well, that's fine, but what about wet weather braking? Surely you want the new tyres on the front so that you get better braking performance. So it's been a while being able to get it organised, but thanks to the amazing guys at Michelin, we went back to Myra last week, just me, and we set up a number of tests. We basically had 3 cars. One car had new tyres all round, one car had new tyres on the front, and one car had new tyres on the rear. And we do a whole bunch of, we do a wet weather braking test, so straight line braking, and then wet weather handling. Now that video is either going to be this Friday or next Monday, depending on whether I get the Vantage video edited in time for Friday. So you'll have to bear with me on that one. But a really, really interesting outcome. I won't tell you what the outcome was, but it's great to be able to answer your questions and go back and do that. And then I wanted to just have a bit of a shout out for the Drive Talk podcast. I haven't mentioned that on the Midweek 180 for a while. I know many of you tune into that. We have upped our game a little bit this year because last year we were only filming them in person. Logistics were quite difficult for that. So it meant that we were only able to put out a podcast every 2 weeks. Now we're doing them in person, but we're also doing them online. So I'm actually filming a podcast this afternoon online with Joe. So we are now putting out a podcast every Friday. So on YouTube, they land at midday on a Friday. On YouTube, they land at 5 o'clock, and on an audio platform, they land at about 12 o'clock, so you can listen to it on your way home from work. Next week's a really exciting week. So on Tuesday, we're actually going to the Schmuseum to see our good friend Tim, Schme150. He's been on the pod before, but we've got some really cool stuff to talk about. So we're going to be filming a podcast at the Schmuseum with Tim, and then me and Joe and Pat get on a plane on Tuesday, fly to Sweden with VW, and we're actually going ice driving in Sweden with VW, and we're going to be doing a podcast out there with one of their chief test drivers of VW, which should be really, really interesting. So make sure you tune in for that. So a busy schedule, that's for sure. Anyway, I won't keep you any longer. Put any ideas for midweek 180 topics that you want me to discuss maybe. But if you enjoyed that, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. The subscribers keep ticking up, the channel keeps growing, and things are going really, really well. But we can always have an extra subscriber or two. Make sure you tune in on Friday at 6 o'clock for the next video. I'm really hoping it's the Vantage V12 because that car is a spectacular car and it deserves to be a Friday feature video. But my fallback position, in case I haven't got the time this week, because I've got to be filming with the Pura Sangue this week, poor me, is the Michelin tyre testing video is finished and edited, so I can have that one out on Friday at 6. But my plan would be Vantage this Friday, Michelin tyre testing on Monday. Anyway, whatever it is you're doing today, I hope you're doing it well, and I hope you are well and happy and keeping yourself fit and healthy and active, and I'll see you on the next one. You take care, guys. Drive safe.